Hello folks, I am Alan for today's news. I will be reading and speaking about world news, interesting news, news to keep you entertained, and news to keep you informed. First, I got a lot of news here too. The first thing I got for you is from the Atlantic. Why Biden caved.
The White House and Congress have not made much progress in their talks to avert an unprecedented, and potentially calamitous, national default that could occur as soon as early June. But on the most fundamental point of dispute, President Joe Biden has already caved. He's negotiating with Republicans over the debt ceiling. For months, the president's ironclad position has been that the debt ceiling is not a bargaining chip. No longer would Democrats allow Republicans to hold hostage the nation's creditworthiness and economic prestige. Paying the government's bills by raising the U.S.'s statutory borrowing limit would be non-negotiable. As recently as Friday, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre declared without equivocation, "We are not going to negotiate over the debt limit." But Biden himself has dropped the pretense that his weeks-long budget discussions with the GOP have not revolved around the debt ceiling. Asked specifically about the debt ceiling on Sunday, in anticipation of a second White House visit by congressional leaders, planned for today, Biden told reporters, "Well, I've learned a long time ago, and you know as well as I do, it never is good to characterize a negotiation in the middle of a negotiation. So there you go, it's a negotiation." Exactly what the two parties are discussing is only starting to become clear. According to various reports, a deal to avert default could include some changes to permitting rules that would speed up domestic energy production, a revocation of unused COVID funds, additional work requirements for some federal programs, although the president has ruled out any modifications to Medicaid, and, most significant, a cap on overall federal spending. The Biden administration still claims to be haggling only over the budget, not the debt ceiling. The president has been emphasizing for months that he's eager to have budget negotiations. A White House official, who requested anonymity to explain the administration's somewhat tortured position, told me. That's of course different from avoiding default, which is non-negotiable.
Okay, and there's more to read on that if you want to read the rest of it. I'm going to go to my next one here. This from here, Newsmax. Roger Ailes' wife rips Murdochs for Havoc at Fox News.
Roger Ailes' widow took to social media to wish her late husband a happy heavenly birthday, and at the same time bash Fox Corporation chair Rupert Murdoch and Fox News for what the network has become. Ailes, who as chairman and CEO built Fox News into a network empire, was forced out in July 2016 amid sexual harassment allegations. He died May 18, 2017 at age 77 as a result of complications of a subdural hematoma. Happy heavenly birthday, Roger Ailes. It took you 20 years to build Fox News into the powerhouse that it was and only 6 years for the Murdochs to wreak havoc. Rupert thought he could do your job. What a joke. He has the checkbook but could never come close to your genius. RIP. Elizabeth Ailes tweeted Monday. Under Roger Ailes' leadership, Fox News became a force in conservative politics. He championed national sovereignty and supported then-candidate Donald Trump. Trump, who blamed his 2020 election loss on voter fraud in several battleground states, has said Fox News sabotaged him with people such as former host Chris Wallace. Under current CEO Lachlan Murdoch, Rupert's son, the network has lost many once loyal viewers. Newsmax, meanwhile, has seen a 100% ratings increase across the board. Elizabeth Ailes' tweet came less than 3 weeks after Fox fired Tucker Carlson, the station's #1 primetime host and most prominent conservative. Carlson was let go soon after Fox News agreed to a settlement with Dominion Voting Systems for $787.5 million. That settlement was reached shortly before a trial was set to begin on Dominion's claims that Fox News defamed the company by spreading election lies about the 2020 election. The network, though, simply said, Fox News Media and Tucker Carlson have agreed to part ways. We thank him for his service to the network as a host and prior to that as a contributor.
And that's how I got on that one there. And we'll go to my next one here. This from Newsmax. Rep. Issa to Newsmax. Wray's reaction to Durham report lacking.
House Republicans are pleased with findings in a 300-page report from U.S. Special Counsel John Durham that the FBI lacked evidence to investigate Donald Trump's first presidential campaign in 2016, but not happy to see FBI Director Christopher Wray's reactions, Representative Issa tells Newsmax. I just left Chairman, Jim, Jordan and of course we're pleased that we have 300 pages of fact, to bolster the reality that the 2016 election was tipped by the FBI and the Department of Justice, but we're not happy to see Christopher Wray try to pretend that everything's going to be okay, the California Republican said on Newsmax's The Record with Greta Van Susteren. The report also proves there has been more than a decade of repeat offenses from the FBI, and the theme is, it only offends against Republicans. It is a classic example of the weaponization of the government against its people, Issa added. Van Susteren pointed out that former CIA Director John Brennan is included in the Durham report. Then in 2020, he also became involved in a Trump election when he, along with 50 other former intelligence officials, signed a letter claiming that the materials found on the laptop of President Joe Biden's son, Hunter, were a result of Russian disinformation. No question at all, in 2016 they tried to change the outcome of the election in favor of Hillary Clinton, said Issa. In 2020, they had a real factor in changing the election to give us our current president. He added that he believes Biden won his 2020 election against Trump, but he doesn't believe he won it fair and square when you look at this kind of activity and others that tilted the scale. That's what we're going to have to continue looking at. We can't trust our democracy if we can't trust those who can weaponize government against their political enemies. Former acting CIA Director Mike Morell, who testified about the letter concerning Hunter Biden's laptop, meanwhile, has given the Judiciary Committee its only real honest answer, said Issa. He said he signed it because he wanted Biden to win because he supported him, the congressman said. He didn't mince words in some cases. Brennan, however, came to the committee thinking he was better than us, said Issa. Others have come in and taken the fifth. The fact is of those 51 and others related to what we've seen. We've seen that they all had a political motive. They signed on to it, and their word means nothing. Their actions also meant for Americans that they could not trust their government, particularly when it gets close to an election, said Issa. Meanwhile, Jordan, who heads the House Government Weaponization Committee, is expected to issue another scathing report that will back up Durham's on the fact that we have seen a systematic use of, if you will, the fear of Russia to try to elect Hillary Clinton and ultimately to elect Joe Biden.
Okay, and that's all I got for you right there. And let's go to the next one here. This one here from Newsmax Finance. Yellen. U.S. default will cause worldwide panic runs.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen Tuesday warned that a U.S. default on government debt would leave millions of Americans without income payments, potentially triggering a recession that destroys many American jobs and businesses. Yellen told a gathering of community bankers that the unprecedented economic and financial crisis would be exacerbated by possible disruptions to the federal government's operations, including air traffic control, law enforcement, border security and national defense, and telecommunications systems. She said the accompanying financial crisis could multiply the severity of the downturn, adding, "It is very conceivable that we'd see a number of financial markets break, with worldwide panic triggering margin calls, runs and fire sales."
And that's all I got on that one there. Yeah, people are gonna, government people in Social Security and stuff, they'll be running into banks because they won't be getting paid or not paid that much. And it's gonna be terrible. Anyway, let's go to the next one. This from Newsmax. Trump, I'll release all JFK files if reelected.
Former President Donald Trump stated he would release all the files related to former President John F. Kennedy's assassination if reelected in 2024. Trump's statement follows after Democrat Party challenger, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., said last week that there was overwhelming evidence that the CIA was involved in his uncle's murder. "I released a lot, as you know. And I will release everything else," Trump stated to the messenger on Monday. In 2018, the Trump administration wrote in a memo that records pertaining to JFK's assassination were withheld because certain information should continue to be redacted because of identifiable national security, law enforcement, and foreign affairs concerns. "I agree with the archivist's recommendation," the memo continued, adding that the continued withholdings are necessary to protect against identifiable harm to national security, law enforcement, or foreign affairs that is of such gravity that it outweighs the public interest in immediate disclosure. "I am also ordering agencies to re-review each of those redactions over the next 3 years. At any time during that review period, and no later than the end of that period, agencies shall disclose information that no longer warrants continued withholding." Prior to his departure from Fox News, journalist Tucker Carlson reported that he spoke to someone with direct knowledge of JFK's assassination. When asked by Carlson if the CIA had a hand in JFK's assassination, the source said, "The answer is yes. I believe they were involved. It's a whole different country from what we thought it was. It's all fake." In 1992, then-President George H.W. Bush, who had once served as the director of the CIA, signed a law mandating the public release of all JFK-related documents. However, successive administrations, including the Biden administration, have refrained from disclosing the documents in their entirety. While some materials were released by Biden, approximately 4,300 records remain redacted. During his interview with The Messenger, when asked if the public should be worried about anything in the JFK records, Trump replied, "Well, I don't want to comment on that. But I will tell you that I have released a lot. I will release the remaining portion very early in my term." For the past 6 decades, theories challenging the government's official narrative of a lone shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, have persisted. While the Warren Commission report supported the lone actor theory, a 1979 House committee report suggested the possibility of multiple shooters. Jim Garrison, a Louisiana district attorney, conducted investigations into the 1963 shooting, authoring books on the subject. Garrison's work served as inspiration for Oliver Stone's film, JFK. The CIA includes a study on its website claiming that the allegations made by Garrison in his books may stem from a Soviet-backed disinformation scheme.
Is it something that they always wait for decades and decades to be gone by before they get into these things? And Trump thinks that, this will get him reelected. I don't know if there's anything in there or not. It remains to be seen. Let's go to the next one. This from Business Insider. Russian troops taken over from Wagner in Bakhmut are abandoning their positions, Ukrainian officer claims. As soon as they are afraid, they just run.
A Ukrainian officer said Russian troops are abandoning their Bakhmut positions out of fear. He said that when they take over from Wagner mercenaries they are confused, scared, and run. The pro-Kremlin Wagner mercenary group has been feuding with Russia's traditional military. Full screen. Russian soldiers who have taken over military positions in Bakhmut from Wagner troops have quickly abandoned them out of fear, a Ukrainian officer told the Times of London. The head of intelligence for Ukraine's 228th Battalion, who goes by the call sign Zulu, said Ukraine's efforts have been aided by soldiers from the traditional Russian military taking over from the mercenary force. As soon as Wagner left and the regular Russian troops stepped in, they abandoned their positions, he said, adding, the Wagner fighters would hold positions until the very end. Many of them were prisoners, right? So they knew it was either fight or go back to prison. The Wagner Group, which has thousands of mercenary fighters and prisoners serving in Ukraine, has spearheaded Russia's efforts to capture the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. The battle is considered the longest and bloodiest of the war to date. Zulu said that Russian soldiers have no motivation. They don't understand what they are doing here. So as soon as they are afraid, they just run.
Okay, and there's more to read on that if you want to read the rest of it. I'm going to go to my next one here. This from Fox News. Separatists fed up with Trudeau want province to break away from Canada, become the 51st state.
An advocacy group in Alberta, Canada, is trying to educate residents of the province about what it argues would be the benefits of breaking off from the country to join the U.S. as its 51st state. I find myself having an affinity toward the U.S. more than Canada because of the freedom, constitution, and just the entire republican system versus the monarchy here, which is really a pseudonym for dictatorship, a source with the Alberta 51 Project told Fox News Digital. Founded in 2022, the project is dedicated to supporting education to all Albertans on why we should become the 51st state of the United States of America, according to its website. About 1/5 of Canadians in various provinces believe they would be better off under the U.S. government, according to a poll done by research company earlier this year. The source who spoke to Fox News Digital did so on condition of anonymity amid what he described as the increasingly authoritarian tactics of the Canadian government, which he noted has arrested Christian pastors and targeted its political opponents by freezing their bank accounts during last year's trucker convoy protests. The The source said that the project rolled out in response to online chatter among disaffected Albertans who wished somehow to secede from the authority of the federal government in Ottawa, which he noted is in the eastern part of Canada and exhibits a mindset that often diverges from that of Canadians in the more conservative western provinces. Albertans have a real affinity with the land, and they have that cowboy spirit, that Indian spirit, that oil and gas rigger spirit, he said, adding that many Albertans have a desire to be left alone by the government. That's not really a Canadian governmental kind of thing, he said. Basically, in Canada, you have a socialist-style system, and that socialism is kind of like a bad disease that just keeps getting worse and worse as time goes by. We wanted to dare to poke the Canadian identity bare, he said. When Trudeau came in, he said some years ago that Canada doesn't have a culture, they're not different. So, they use that for globalism and what they call multiculturalism. So, they kind of poo-poo any Canadian identity, with the exception of Quebec, of course, don't touch the sacred cow. Pastor spends Easter in jail after another arrest at drag queen event. The source said Trudeau's assertion was insulting to Albertans as well as many traditionalist Canadians who live in Saskatchewan, eastern British Columbia and even westernmost province Yukon, whose worldview he likened to rural Americans in states such as Montana and Texas. He also said that the rich natural resources of Alberta and similar provinces have been unfairly siphoned by other parts of Canada since the provinces were established. Such Canadians are suspicious of big government, he said, and noted that the U.S. Constitution was framed by men who had the same attitude and would better fit them. The source maintained that fear toward their government has seized many Canadians in recent years. The monarchy is the supreme ruler and his representative is the Prime Minister and the Governor-General, he said. And really, it's just a rubber stamp. Whatever the Prime Minister says, that pretty much goes. We saw that during the trucker convoy when Trudeau basically shut off everybody's rights and freedoms, and nobody did anything. No one said anything. In Canada, we don't have rights and freedoms like in the US. Trudeau, at heart, is a fascist, he's a communist at heart, he's a globalist, the source said, who maintained that the Prime Minister will never be held to account because his administration also appoints the country's judges.
Okay, and there's more to read on that if you want to read the rest of it. I don't think they'll become the 51st state, and America don't want Trudeau anyway. Now what he did to the truckers. Let me go to the next one here. They're from Business Insider. The GOP proposal to raise the debt ceiling would force Americans on Social Security and Medicare to wait longer to receive help and make college more expensive, the White House says.
The Office of Management and Budget released a memo outlining the impacts of the GOP debt ceiling plan. Under various scenarios, the OMB estimated federal programs could be cut by up to 30%. That would include worse customer service times for Americans receiving Medicare and Social Security. The Biden administration is sounding the alarm over Republicans' hopes to enact far-reaching spending cuts, saying that the contours of the GOP's plans would result in a 30% slash to a slew of popular federal programs. In a memo, Shalonda Young, director of the Office of Management and Budget, breaks down the math on Republicans' desired funding levels. The GOP's latest line on spending is that it wants to maintain the same funding levels as fiscal year 2022, that level of funding is reflected in their narrowly passed House bill to raise the debt ceiling for just 1 year. The bill includes a long list of proposed spending cuts and changes to federal programs, including banning student loan forgiveness and raising work requirements to access social welfare programs. While Young noted that the GOP bill doesn't include a line-by-line breakdown of exactly how cuts would be implemented, she lays out a few scenarios. If Republicans leave defense funding, Veterans Affairs, and Homeland Security untouched, everything else would have to be cut by 30%. That could mean people waiting for disability benefits through Social Security might face wait times of at least 2 months longer, and those seeking help through Social Security and Medicare offices could experience worse customer service. Additionally, the cuts would mean less funding for affordable housing vouchers, and the maximum Pell Grant award going down by nearly $1,400.
And see, there's more to read on that if you want to read the rest of it. And we go to the next one. They're from the Washington Post. And the president most to blame for the national debt problem is
the last administration alone, the last guy who served in this office for 4 years, increased the total national debt by 40% in just 4 years. President Biden remarks on the national debt ceiling in Valhalla, New York, May 10. As he heads to a showdown with House Republicans over raising the debt limit, the president has sought to add context to the discussion over the nation's $31 trillion in debt. He has noted that debt has accumulated over the past 200 years. And while Republicans peg Biden as being a big spender, he has pointed the finger at his predecessor, Donald Trump. Trump, Biden said, increased the national debt by 40% in his 4-year term. He added that, besides the pandemic, the biggest contributor to the national debt over the last decade was the tax cut passed in 2017 and signed into law by Trump. The implication is that if Republicans are looking for someone to blame for the size of the national debt, it should be Trump. Biden has a point about the increase in debt under Trump. Using the Treasury Department's Debt to the Penny website, we can see that the nation's total public debt, including intragovernmental holdings, was just under $20 trillion when Trump took office in 2017. 4 years later, when Trump left, the figure was about $27.8 trillion. That's an increase of nearly 39%. The debt has increased an additional 13% since Biden became president. But numbers can be deceiving. The Treasury website also shows that $4.3 trillion in debt, more than half of the $7.9 trillion increase, came in the last 10 months of Trump's term as the coronavirus pandemic emerged, and massive government spending was needed to mitigate the economic fallout. Both parties strongly supported such measures. Biden has criticized Trump's handling of the pandemic, but he has not questioned the level of government spending needed to combat it. It's in Biden's political interest to focus on Trump. But his attack is a bit misplaced. Policy choices made long ago are more responsible for the fiscal state of the nation. Assigning a particular president responsibility for a debt increase is rarely productive, because so much depends on factors beyond a president's control, an economic crisis such as the Great Recession or the pandemic, for example. The White House declined to comment for the record. The impact of social programs. The main reason the United States has federal deficits, which year after year add to the national debt, is because of fiscal imbalance. Simply put, that means the government is not collecting enough money through taxes and fees to pay for public programs and services it has enacted or promised. If actions are not taken to close that gap, the problem gets worse over time. Which president has contributed the most to the nation's long-term fiscal imbalance? That would be Lyndon B. Johnson, according to a 2021 study by Charles Blahus, a former economic advisor to George W. Bush and a public trustee for Social Security and Medicare from 2010 through 2015. Through an exhaustive study of Congressional Budget Office and Office of Management and Budget reports, Blahus estimated LBJ's share of the fiscal imbalance is 29.7%. Close behind is Richard M. Nixon, with 29.2%.
Okay, you're going to read the rest of that in my description box if you like. This is just everybody pointing fingers. They act like kids. He did it. He did it. Let's go to the next one. This from the Daily Caller. From report. DOJ removes investigative team from Hunter Biden probe. Attorney says.
The entire investigative team tasked with probing tax fraud allegations against Hunter Biden has reportedly been removed by the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, at the request of the Department of Justice, DOJ, according to the New York Post. The criminal supervisory special agent who has supervised the Hunter Biden probe since 2020 and served as a whistleblower on the investigation, was reportedly informed that he and his entire investigative team were being removed from the case, the agent's attorneys revealed, according to the New York Post. Alleging that the move was clearly retaliatory, the attorneys reportedly continued that the whistleblower was informed that the change came at the request of the DOJ despite testimony before a House committee that promised no retaliatory measures would be taken, the outlet noted. On April 27, 2023, IRS Commissioner Daniel Werfel appeared before the House Committee on Ways and Means. He testified, "I can say without any hesitation there will be no retaliation for anyone making an allegation or a call to a whistleblower hotline. However, this move is clearly retaliatory and may also constitute obstruction of a congressional inquiry," attorneys Mark Lytle and Tristan Levitt reportedly wrote, according to the New York Post. The whistleblower, an IRS supervisor, has alleged that there have been clear conflicts of interest in the DOJ's handling of the ongoing investigation into allegations that Hunter Biden failed to pay taxes and made false statements on a federal firearms application. The whistleblower also alleged preferential treatment and politics are improperly infecting decisions and protocols that would normally be followed by career law enforcement professionals in similar circumstances if the subject were not politically connected. Lytle and Levitt reportedly argued that their client is protected by the 5 U.S.C. Section 2302, which allows whistleblowers to make disclosures to Congress without fear of retaliatory personnel actions, which include significant change in duties, responsibilities, or working conditions, according to the New York Post. Any attempt by any government official to prevent a federal employee from furnishing information to Congress is also a direct violation of long-standing appropriations restriction. Furthermore, 18 U.S.C. Section 1505 makes it a crime to obstruct an investigation of Congress, Lytle and Levitt reportedly continued, according to the outlet.
Okay, and there's just one little paragraph left. The lawyers reportedly petitioned members of Congress to look into the matter, adding that the removal of the investigative team is exactly the sort of issue our client intended to blow the whistle on to begin with, the outlet stated. And there's a tweet right here from Stephen Nelson. Scoop, IRS whistleblower who alleged cover-up in Hunter Biden and tax investigations, says his entire team was removed from case. His lawyer tells Congress that this move is clearly retaliatory and may also constitute obstruction of a congressional inquiry. Yeah. Let's go to the next one here. Now, this special one here I'm giving you. This from CNN. Egg prices are crashing. Here's why.
For months and months, the price of eggs was soaring. Now, they're going splat. As of last week, Midwest large eggs, the benchmark for eggs sold in their shells, cost just 94 cents per dozen in the wholesale market, according to Berry, an independent price reporting agency. That's a sharp fall from $5.46 per carton just 6 months ago. In retail, prices are well above $1 per carton, though they too have been declining. Why the decline? It's because of a reversal of supply-demand trends that caused prices to spike in the first place. Last year, deadly avian flu wiped out a significant number of egg-laying hens, reducing egg supplies. On top of that, farmers had to deal with inflated feed and fuel costs. Cal-Maine Foods, CALM, the largest U.S. egg producer, reported profit growth of over 700% in the quarter ending February 25 because of higher egg prices. Some U.S. lawmakers like Senator Elizabeth Warren have asked for more clarity on why prices got so high, raising concerns about possible price gouging. But now supply is back on track. Though the industry braced for more cases of bird flu this year, the deadly virus seems to be under control. Meanwhile, demand hasn't kept pace. The wholesale price drop began in late March, according to Karen Rispoli, senior egg market analyst at Berry. Prices hit annual lows in early May and have stayed about steady since then, she said. Egg prices have been declining this year. Justin Sullivan/Getty Images. While the egg market in 2022 was dominated by the bird flu, the market this year has been dominated by its absence, Rispoli told CNN.
And if you want to read the rest of that, you can read the rest of that. So here, will egg prices decline in the grocery store? Wholesale prices are taking a dive, but that it doesn't mean consumer will get quite as much as a deal. Let me have this be read here.
Will egg prices decline in the grocery store? Wholesale prices are taking a dive, but that doesn't mean consumers will get quite as much of a deal. Retail egg prices have been declining at a more moderate clip. From March to April, egg prices fell 1.5% adjusted for seasonal swings, according to recent data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. On an annual basis, prices are still high. In the year through April, egg prices were 21.4% higher. Wholesale prices are typically more volatile than retail prices. That's because supermarkets and grocery stores set retail egg prices, and they don't want customers to be scared away by wild swings. So prices in the grocery store don't immediately follow wholesale trends. Just because wholesale prices go lower, it doesn't necessarily mean retailers will lower their prices, said Ernest. So the consumer is still subject to a higher price point. And it'll take a while for that to get shaken out.
Well, I know 2 weeks ago at the Walmart over where I live, large eggs, a dozen, was $1.94. I checked the Walmart app today, and it was $1.70. So it did go down some. Let me go to the next one. This from the Daily Beast. Humanitarian for Putin's unstoppable super weapons blasted out of the sky by U.S. defense system.
Russian officials must be reeling in utter disbelief after 7 of their most sophisticated missiles were blasted out of the sky in an incredible night of drama over Kiev. When Ukraine's Defense Express outlet reported that just one Kh-47 Dagger missile had been shot down with a US-made Patriot air defense system earlier this month, it prompted fury in Russia. On Saturday, US officials told CNN that the Russian missile attack on May 5 was targeting the Patriot itself. Russian officials called the interception wishful thinking, even as Ukrainian and US officials made statements to the contrary. The Kremlin had believed these weapons were all but unstoppable. Those Russian claims were left in disarray early Tuesday when a further 6 Kh-47s were reportedly shot down in a single night. In one of the most intense aerial assaults on the capital since the war began, Ukrainian air defenses took down 18 missiles that were targeting the city. The night sky over Kiev was rocked by explosions as the new Patriot missile defense system responded to an unprecedented, coordinated barrage of missiles. 6 of the highly acclaimed Kh-47 missiles were launched from MiG-31K aircraft, 3 S-400 cruise missiles were fired from land, and a further 9 caliber cruise missiles were launched from the Black Sea.
And there's more to read on this if you want to read the rest of it. I'm going to go to my next one now. This from the New Voice. Commander linked to capture of 277 Ukrainian military personnel in Mariupol, charged with high treason.
The head of the logistical support unit of the 501st Separate Marine Infantry Battalion reportedly changed allegiance and defected to the enemy. The department recalled that at the time, Russian propagandists spread falsehoods claiming that Ukrainian military personnel voluntarily surrendered in the besieged Mariupol. In reality, the Marine infantry leader conspired with the Russians and effectively convinced the commander to surrender. The traitor urged the commander to cease defensive actions, surrender weapons, and personnel. The 277 battalion servicemen were given orders for relocation, but in fact, they were transferred to the so-called DPR, Donetsk People's Republic. The military personnel were deceived, and thus, they were not aware and could not comprehend the unlawful nature of the order or directive to surrender in captivity, the Bureau said. The DBR has decided to close the proceedings against the 277 military personnel of the 501st Separate Marine Infantry Battalion suspected of desertion. This provides grounds for the authorized bodies to restore the violated rights of the captured Marines concerning payments to their families, the DBR added.
And there's more to read on this if you want to read the rest of it. I'm going to go to my next one now. And see this from 1945. Did Ukrainians' air defense just go on the offense over Russia's skies?
By spring of 2023, Russia's Tactical Aerospace Force, the VKS, seemed to have improved on its initially disappointing performance in the war over Ukraine. After suffering heavy losses early in the conflict, VKS pilots were more successfully avoiding the engagement range of Ukraine's surface-to-air missile batteries. They were doing so by confining their strikes to frontline targets or to border cities, firing from standoff distance using arcing rockets or new glide bombs. Such tactics aren't especially effective, but they are hard to counter. The routine was dramatically disrupted on May 13, though. Tent. More from 1945. Joe Biden. Routine was dramatically disrupted on May 13, though, when 2 advanced Russian jet fighters and 2 helicopters on their way back from a bombing mission were destroyed in rapid succession. Even more shockingly, they were taken out over Russian airspace, in Bryansk Oblast. This is not a place they expected to come under attack. All of the losses were recorded on camera by stunned civilians. Reportedly, none of the 9 crew on board these aircraft survived.
Okay, and you can read the rest of this in my description box if you like. I hate it when my browser jumps around like that. Let me go to my next one there. It's from Business Insider. Leaked details of Wagner boss, I ain't saying that name, dealings suggest he was ready to throw Russia's war under the bus just to win the battle, Russia expert says.
The Wagner Group has frequently feuded with Russia's military leadership over its war in Ukraine. A new report suggests the group leader took it farther than previously known, offering to give Ukraine Russian troop locations. The report indicates that Yevgeny Prigozhin was ready to derail Russia's war for his own aims, an expert told Insider. Yevgeny Prigozhin, founder of the paramilitary Wagner group, offered to sell Ukraine the positions of Russian troops in an attempt to take the pressure off his mercenaries in a key battle, a new report said, citing leaked U.S. intelligence. The reported offer, which Prigozhin has denied, suggests he may have been so dead set on claiming victory in the war-torn city of Bakhmut, where Ukrainian and Russian forces have squared off for months at tremendous cost to both sides, but the Russians in particular, that he was ready to effectively throw the Russian military offensive under the bus, an expert on Russian security and politics told Insider. Obviously, Prigozhin was looking for shortcuts, said Mark Galeotti, a senior associate fellow at the London-based Royal United Services Institute, RUSI. And particularly, shortcuts at the expense of his main enemy of the moment, the Defense Ministry and Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu.
Read the rest of this in my description box. I got 2 more to go here, if I can make it. This one from Reuters. With eye on Ukraine, top Chinese general calls for unconventional warfare capabilities.
Beijing, Reuters, drawing lessons from the Ukraine crisis, a top Chinese general urged greater integration of novel capabilities, including artificial intelligence, with conventional warfare tactics ahead of any confrontation with the West. A new genre of hybrid warfare has emerged from the Ukraine conflict, with the intertwining of political warfare, financial warfare, technological warfare, cyber warfare, and cognitive warfare, General Wang Haijian, commander of the People's Liberation Armies, PLA, Western Theater Command, wrote in a front-page article in an official newspaper on Monday. In the name of national security and to fend off perceived threats from the West, Chinese efforts to prepare the country for security challenges have not relaxed despite a slowing economy and COVID-19. Defense spending is set to rise for the 8th straight year in 2023. The scale and sweep of Chinese military preparations are closely watched not just by the West, but also by China's neighbors and democratically governed Taiwan, which China claims as its own. At present and in the future, local conflicts and turmoil are frequent, global problems are intensifying, and the world has entered a new period of turmoil and change, Wang wrote in Study Times.
And there's more to read on that if you want to read the rest of it. I'm going to my last one now. This from the New Voice. All Kinzhal hypersonic missiles targeted Kyiv. Air Forces reveals detailed Russian overnight attack.
We know that this aircraft, the MiG-31K, is a carrier of Kh-47, Kinzhal, aeroballistic missiles. Thus, 6 such missiles were sent towards the capital, all of which were downed by our air defense system, he said. Invading Russian forces also attacked Ukraine from south, from warships deployed in the Black Sea. 9-caliber cruise missiles flying in various directions were shot down. 3 other missiles, likely S-400 or Iskander-M, were also downed. Their type is still being verified, but it is known they were flying on a ballistic trajectory, Inat said. Air raid sirens sounded in most of Ukraine's region in the early hours of May 16. They sounded twice in the capital, from 2:24 a.m. until 4:01 a.m. and from 4:21 a.m. until 5:33 a.m. Russia launched cruise missiles at first and then UAVs. Most of them were shot down over Kyiv, with debris falling in 4 districts across the city.
And that's all I got on that one there. I hope I brought you some information for you. And don't forget, I am out for today's news. I will be reading, speaking about world news, interesting news to keep you entertained, and news to keep you informed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, at least come back once in a while. And until next time, thanks for watching.